already got the amenities out of the way, and then I think that will be just about it. Other than other course, other things I should probably be doing right now, but never mind that right now. But we're gonna talk about the idea I had recently again, which is the idea that how responsibility teaches communication. Now, last time I made a video kind of like this. It was the one with the thumbnail. How horror is the best motivator for responsibility, and here's why. And that was the video where I did the black silhouette screen for 4 minutes talking about why horror is the best motivator for responsibility. And that's not the exact same title, but you know. This time I have a little bit of a script for it, but I just this video, which is why responsibility teaches communication. This is a bit of a goal writing as par with maybe the last goal I had in 2021 from the Napoleon Hill Nightingale style. But this is more like an imitation of that. But not even this is as specific as it needs to be. But that's the point. It's because it's about something that I'm going to explain later. I'll read it very quickly. As of August 4th, 2023, my goal this year is to be specific about my identity so that my intentions are more clearly understood. To get there, I must practice using my decisions to form what I want most and ultimately sacrifice what doesn't serve me. That seems cliche enough, but if you know what I've been through, then you can tell why I would write something like that. So it's like why I would at least, and that's like it sounds jaded and simple, but it's like but if I wrote that, then there's gotta be a reason, right? Because I do everything for a reason apparently. But you know, the thing is that the examples I use are slime creatures and the fisherman example. I guess I can make. That's not something I'm pulling from the meme culture or from ancient history or whatever. I'm actually making that all on the fly. So the first one's the slime creatures. You know how mutability works if you're like a water sign, astrology, whatever, and stuff like that? Well, like the slime creature, like the blobs and the slimes, they're formless. They're things and creatures that have no identity. They can take up any form they want, any type of character or thing or being or place or whatnot, concepts even. They can take up any of those shapes and sizes, but they don't have their own form unless otherwise specified. The idea of a slime or a creature like that, even their very historical mythological weakness being frozen, is because they're immortal or something like that. That says a lot about how you can depict something that's not mysterious. It's like you don't know what to do with it, right? You don't know what to do with those kinds of existences, and so it's like you throw them away like the Pandora's box. You get rid of the can of worms because you don't want to open it. And it's like the same thing goes for like things I've been through. Unfortunately, it's like for me to want to be everything means I have to give up something eventually, and it's like because it's impossible to literally have everything without sacrifice, and especially without regards to actual form identity. Because to be that formless, to be that so-called maybe for me in this case, maybe to be afraid of having identity, perhaps maybe already, but to be afraid of having that form versus being formless can already be its own commute. But it's like the thing is that for me to already have that kind of a slime nature, that kind of adaptability, it's a good thing for its own essence and merit. But it's also like if it has nothing else at its own cost or brevity of that cost, if it has nothing else to sacrifice for that to be limited in a certain form of identity, then it can already suck anyways. You know, there you go. But as for the fisherman example, this is gonna sound a little interesting. Communication is like a ocean being fished into. It's like a fisherman's pole. Communication skills from there. They're like a fisherman's pole. It doesn't matter what body of water you fish into, a pond, a lake, an ocean, even a bed of tears. You're still fishing for a fish. And at the end of the day, if you don't get that fish, it's the result not being done. But either way, the process of using the fisherman's pole is being done in any body of water. It doesn't matter what form that takes, mutably speaking. It's still being a fisherman's process. And my existence has proven to me that I have seen that in back asswards. I'm someone whose madness and insanity has caused me to identify a fisherman's pole as its own body of water. And I'm the fisher pole in the form of a mutable water or something like that. It's like, in other words, it's like being like imagine if the fisherman's pole was a mutable ocean, and the other thing, and the fisherman's pole was its own ocean for me. Yeah, like that. That's how mutable I am. I end up being that kind of a person who's not as fixated as I should be, in a good way, good light. It's like it's quite the curse, right? You don't want to be that kind of person who does not know who they are, or even if you do know what you are, having that identity that you're everything is kind of weird. It's like it's probably not even expected anyways. It's like having an identity in the form of being formless is like that's not a form at all in the long run. It's just it sucks, and as this is just but it's just However, what am I really getting into with this video is that responsibility teaches communication because you're able to learn how to make sacrifices for things, to have an identity, to have disconnections for things, to have a certain purpose and intended result. A question I can often ask you guys is, if even not at this point for once at this matter, is why does communication require you to make a narrow, focused result? And my answer to that myself for this video is, you need a result for communication because if it was formless, like my identity, it would not be communicated at all. It wouldn't have a specific purpose for being discussed about. It wouldn't have a reason to be there. Now, my reasoning with communication was that the reason I use communication as my outlet, the reason I use communication as my way of being present in the moment, was because I didn't know how to find that elsewhere. I didn't know how to find it myself that could exist without communication, or exist without niches so far as part of per YouTube or whatever, that could exist without even using claymation in a proper way or cartooning in a proper way. Those are just specific examples of something that I didn't explain before, but you name it. It's like, if communication doesn't have to be that kind of a so-called outlet, let alone creative, if creativity doesn't have to be that weird outlet for something that doesn't have to belong there, and even other things don't matter, then I guess I could find a way to use them properly and still have an outlet for that in the meantime elsewhere. That could probably be suitable for the best anyways. My point is, however, that when you make decisions, you become a better communicator, and when you make certain sacrifices, you become a better, again, communicator. You're not someone who just goes on a whim about how they can't lose anything and they end up losing everything, or they end up having to lose the things that were essential to how you would truly and even spiritually communicate who you were as a person. You're the kind of person who will not want to be in an earth full of 8 billion people and not know how to be relatable to them just because you have a certain way of doing things. It's like, it's that simple. It's like, if you can't associate with them because of how you live, how do you expect them to live with you if you don't know how to be responsible for, if you don't know how to be responsible for their wakes because you don't know how to communicate with them, basically. That probably didn't make as much sense as I thought it did, but last thing I'll say in this video is that I like hearing these truths coming out of the blue. I like being able to have answers to things that whether I want to them or not. But having answers to more than what I want and having more than what I want in general has something on the long run. Being the kind of person who has been stubborn to live for as long as I had in this short life. Not trying to sound suicidal right now. I'm not trying to, but being the kind of person I am who can find those truths when I'm with myself and those purposes and meanings, whether I find that to be objective or not, can be the test of time. But hopefully that it resides and resounds and even forms a little bit formful about what it's like to have responsibility given communication.